Hi guys, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. What you see in the vise is a variation on the top hat. The pattern's meant to mimic a shrimp, so without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H300 barbless hook. This one's at size 8, it's on a medium wire and it's finished in black nickel. Now, size 8 might seem rather large, but I tie these in size 8 down to size 12. Some of the shrimp are absolutely huge, and for tutorial purposes the larger pattern makes more sense. So the thread I'm going to be using today is from Simplify. It's at 6/0 and it's black. As always with the nano silks, I'm going to add a little spot of super glue to the shank of the hook to help the thread bed in. So I'll just use my thread to spread that up and down the shank, come in behind the eye, and then I'm going to work my thread down the shank, and I'm going to come all the way around the bend here, and that'll do me there. So I'm just past the bend, don't want to go much further than that. Now for the tailing fibres of this fly, I'm going to be using some English partridge. Now the cape's in a bit of a state, but I have managed to get a couple of usable feathers still out of the cape. So I've got the feather here, and what I want to do is just take off maybe a thumbnail's worth of fibres, which is going to create my tail for this pattern. Now as regards to length of tail, I usually go for the straightest part of the bent hook, and that's the length I want. Now I'm going to just catch in a couple of turns, have a look. Yep, that looks okay. I'm going to come back, tidy up the bottom part. Yeah, that looks pretty decent. Now I'm not going to trim this. I'm going to bring it all the way up, catching in all the waist. It's not a finesse pattern by any stretch of the imagination, so having all this in doesn't make a great deal of a difference. So I've just parked my thread 2mm back from the eye, and what I want to catch in next is my post, and what I'm using is a 5mm, it's a booby tube which I've cut myself, and I've cut it at a slant. Now what I want to do with this is I want it to kind of stand up on the post. If I wanted it to go that way, I would tie it in with a slant that way, but as I want it to stand up, I'm going to tie it in this way. Now when you're using nano silk and foam, you've got to go with a gentle hand. You can't be putting all the power into this, because it will simply just cut through the foam and you'll be left with it in your fingers rather than attached to the hook like it should be. So just gently, and then you can catch that in, and you can see it's added to the taper a little bit, which is always helpful. So I'll just tidy up that body a little more, and the next thing I'm going to do is come in with my rib. Now I'm using this stuff. If you haven't got it already, you won't be able to get it, sadly. This is from Steve Parton. It's a remnant of his product selling days, if you like. I suppose that the alternative to it now, I think it's called clear buzzer wrap, and it's done by Vineyards, I believe. I might be wrong on that, but I'm sure you'll let me know if I am. So it's like a clear rib, and I'm going to catch that in just at the top here, and then I'll come all the way down to the bottom. Now I've had some great days on Grapham at the back end on the shrimp pattern. I haven't been for a couple of years, and maybe it's time to get myself back up there and give it a go. So nothing like tying up a few flies for a day out. Now for the body of this fly, I'm using some Trout Stalkers dubbing. This is Bram Olive Possum. Now I say olive, it doesn't look very olive in this light to me, but it does have a quality to it that I want on the body of this fly. So I'm going to dub it on a little bit at a time and bring it up the body. Now before you go asking in the comments, I'm not sure if Andrew is still in the dubbing business. He's certainly in the political business, and that's kind of curtailed his creation of dubbing, which is a real shame because the man's got a talent for it. The stuff is fantastic. So I'll just catch a bit more in. Want to try and keep that taper going. So I'm just adding the dubbing to try and achieve this cigar shaped sort of body. Just come off a bit. Doesn't have to be super prominent, just a very subtle shape to the body. So it's thicker at the top. If you've had a chance to see the shrimp in Grapham or Rutland, you'll see that they're kind of thicker at the top end, and then they taper away at the bottom. Some of them. There's obviously lots of different varieties of shrimp in these waters, but I suppose the famous one at Grapham's the killer shrimp. They are massive and they are kind of tapered like this. So next I'm going to bring my rib up, and what this rib does, and the clear buzzer wrap will do the same if you decide to do it exactly like this. As always with the patterns I'm tying, I would always encourage you to just use what you have, you know. So if you've got some silver or gold, I dare say that would work just as well. But this gives me that little bit of shine, which when the shrimps are wet, they have a gleam to the body. Make sure you tie in the rib securely, like so, and remove your excess. Now what I like to do is just once I've secured that rib, I'm just going to add a little bit more of my dubbing, the possum, and finish that kind of off at just in behind the foam. Now before I go forward, I'm going to come in with my dubbing brush and I'm really going to scruff all this out a bit. And the thing with the possum is when it scruffs out, it still lets a good amount of light through to that rib and looks the part. There we go. Job's a good one. Now the hackle again. I've got an English partridge feather. It's probably looking a little bit worse for wear. I'm going to catch the tip in my hackle pliers and just sweep it all back. So I've got it like a Christmas tree here. Now I'm going to catch this in. First of all, I'm just going to trim it slightly. I'm going to catch this in at the front here. So I'll just, oh, it's not wanting to play. Got it. And then I'll come around, and my thread is now sitting at the back of the foam. Now I've left myself a handle, but I like to get the hackle pliers on. I just feel like you've got a little bit more control of your feather when you do it this way. So I'll bring it up. I want to get 2 turns really, no more. I don't want it to be a big bushy hackle. So there's my first turn, and my second turn is going to come in just behind it. Now as I come in with my second turn, I'm going to bring my hackle around to the front of the post, and then I'm going to catch that with my thread, and as you can see with the hackle pliers I'm able to hold that hackle right out the way. I can release the hackle pliers now, thumb and forefinger in, pull everything back, and you can get a couple of turns in. At which point, come in with your snips, careful not to catch your thread, and remove your excess hackle. So that's looking not too bad. Okay, so to finish the fly off, what we want to do is get a little bit more of our dubbing, and I want to catch that in just in front of the eye. It doesn't take much, 2 or 3 centimeters of dubbing at the front here. Pull everything back. You can see I'm lifting that post, and then I bring my thread to the front like so, And again, I'm going to come in with a little bit of super glue onto the thread. Grab my whip finish tool. And tighten that up. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, that big orange post, it doesn't look akin to the fly. And you can use black if you like, but what I've found is that if you use orange or white, or pink even for that matter, it's much easier to sight when you cast. Now, generally the fishing for the shrimp bashing is done from the bank, and you will be casting at a little bit of distance, so you need something you'll be able to sight. Now I'm going to add a little bit of up high just to the hackle, not the body, just the hackle. And how I want this to sit is just in the film. So I want it to sit like this. This is all under the water below the needle, but it will sit up there on calmer sort of days. Now I would fish a couple of these as a team. I'd maybe fish the size 8 on the point, maybe a 10 in the middle, and even a 12 on the top dropper if you were brave and wanted to fish 3. But when the fish are on these shrimp patterns, they tend to be really decent stamp, so you might want to tie on some quite thick tippet. I hope that's been of some use to you and given you some ideas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.